They tell you the Philippines is paradise for retirees. Cheap land, warm people, endless sunshine. What they don't tell you is how fast you can lose everything. Not to a woman, not to a scam, but to a government that decides your dream was never really yours to begin with. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by a man who asked to remain anonymous. He wanted others to know what can happen when paperwork, promises and Filipino bureaucracy collide with foreign hope. I'm 62 years old. My name is Malcolm Reed, and I spent 40 years of my life in Sydney building other people's dreams, houses, office buildings, shopping centres. I was a construction supervisor, the guy who made sure the concrete was poured right, the guy who signed off on structural integrity before anyone moved in. I was good at it, reliable. But when you spend 4 decades making other people rich, you start wondering when it's your turn. My marriage ended 3 years ago. Clean divorce, they call it. Nothing clean about watching someone pack up 28 years into boxes and leave without looking back. My kids were grown by then. My daughter moved to Melbourne. My son went to Perth. They called on birthdays, sent Christmas cards, but I could feel the distance, the way you feel cold air through a crack in the wall. I wasn't part of their lives anymore. I was maintenance, an obligation. So when I retired with $85,000 in savings and a pension that would cover rent and not much else, I started looking at options. I didn't want to fade into some Sydney suburb, living alone in a 1-bedroom flat, waiting for my body to give out. I wanted something more. I wanted to matter again. Even if just to myself, I started researching. Thailand was popular with expats, but foreigners couldn't own land there. You could lease it, but it wasn't really yours. Malaysia had the MM2H program, but the requirements kept changing, and the costs were climbing. Then I found the Philippines. English speakers, cheap cost of living, beaches everywhere, and most importantly, there were ways for foreigners to own property if you knew how to work the system. I joined expat forums, read blog posts, watched endless YouTube videos of retirees living in beach houses. They built for a fraction of what it would cost back home. They all said the same thing. It's paradise if you do it right. I convinced myself I could do it right. I was a construction guy. I knew how to assess land, how to read plans, how to manage contractors. This wasn't a fantasy. It was a practical decision. A second chance to build something that was actually mine. I printed out a list of provincial towns, ranked by cost of living and expat population. Batangas was near the top. Close to Manila, but not too touristy. Coastal land was still affordable. I booked a one-way ticket. I packed 2 suitcases and left my rental flat in Parramatta without telling anyone where I was going. Maybe I wanted them to worry. Maybe I just didn't want to hear them talk me out of it. I landed in Manila on a Tuesday morning in late April. The heat hit me like a wall the second I stepped off the plane. Thick, wet air that made my shirt stick to my back before I even cleared customs. I spent one night in Manila, hated every second of it. Traffic, pollution, crowds pressing in from every direction. I took a bus south to Batangas the next morning, 3 hours through chaotic highways and rural roads that narrowed into single lanes. I'd found a real estate agent through an expat blog. Her name was Leticia Santos. She ran a small office in Batangas City. I'd emailed her a week earlier, told her I was looking for agricultural land with ocean views, something I could develop into a small resort or retirement property. She'd responded within an hour, professional, direct. She said she specialized in helping foreign investors navigate the legal complexities of Philippine land ownership. That sounded exactly like what I needed. I met her at her office on a Thursday afternoon. The office was tiny, just one room on the 2nd floor of a building near the town center. A desk, 2 chairs, a filing cabinet, and a fan that didn't do much against the heat. Leticia was 34, maybe 35. Slim, professional, hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She wore a blue blouse and slacks, carried herself like someone who knew her business. She shook my hand and smiled. "Mr. Reed, welcome to Batangas. Please sit." Her English was flawless. No accent I could detect. I sat down, and she pulled out a folder full of property listings. Photos of land parcels, some with handwritten notes in the margins. She asked me what I was looking for. I told her. 5 to 10 hectares, ocean views, accessible by road, something I could develop gradually. She nodded, flipping through her listings. I have several properties that might interest you, she said. Most are agricultural land, which is good for foreign ownership if structured correctly. Do you know about the 60-40 rule? I didn't, she explained it. Foreigners couldn't own land directly in the Philippines, but they could own up to 40% of a Filipino corporation that held the land. It was a workaround common among expat investors. I'd have minority ownership on paper, but I'd control operations. It sounds complicated, I said. She smiled. It's standard. I helped set up the corporation. Everything is legal. You just need the right structure. She pulled out a photo of a property near the coast. 5 hectares sloping gently toward the sea. Trees along the perimeter. A dirt road leading in. This one has been in my family for years, she said. My uncle owns it. He's getting old, wants to sell. It's titled Fully Agricultural, and the price is very reasonable for what you're getting. I looked at the photo. It was beautiful. How much? I asked. 3 million pesos, about 75,000 US dollars. It was within my budget. Maybe even below it. I felt that first flicker of hope. Can I see it? I asked. She nodded. Of course. I can take you now. We drove out in her beat-up white Toyota. The road turned from pavement to gravel to dirt as we got closer to the coast. She talked the whole way, pointing out landmarks, explaining which areas were being developed, which were still untouched. She spoke to people we passed in Tagalog, waving, calling out greetings. Everyone seemed to know her. It made me feel safer, like she was connected, part of the community. When we reached the property, I got out and walked the land. It was everything the photo promised. The soil was decent, not too rocky. The slope was gentle enough to build on without major grading. I could see the ocean from the high point, a strip of blue through the trees. I stood there imagining it. A main house near the road. Guest cottages closer to the water. Maybe a small open-air restaurant. A dive shop if I wanted to get ambitious. This could work. This could actually work. Letitia stood a few meters away, giving me space. When I turned back, she was smiling. "What do you think?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I wanted to seem cautious, measured. But inside I was already sold. "It's nice," I said. "But I need to know about the title, permits, zoning, all of that." She nodded. "Of course. Everything is in order. The land is fully titled, registered with the Registry of Deeds. It's zoned agricultural, which is perfect for what you want to build. I can help you set up the corporation, handle all the paperwork. You just need to decide if you want to move forward." I looked back at the land. The sun was starting to set, turning the ocean gold. I thought about Sydney, my empty flat, my silent phone, the feeling of being invisible. "Let me think about it," I said. But I'd already decided. I came back to the property 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each time I walked it in a different direction, checking the soil, the drainage, the access points. I took notes, sketched rough plans. I was acting like the construction supervisor I used to be, the guy who didn't miss details. But underneath that, I was acting like a man who wanted this so badly he was willing to ignore the things that didn't add up. On my 3rd visit, Letitia brought her uncle. His name was Ernesto. He was maybe 70, thin, weathered, with a face that didn't say much. We shook hands and he nodded but didn't speak. Letitia did all the talking. She explained that Ernesto had owned the land for decades, that it had been in their family since before she was born. He was ready to sell because he was getting older, and none of his children wanted to farm. "He trusts you," Letitia said, smiling at me. "He likes that you want to build something here, not just flip it for profit." I asked Ernesto directly if he had the title. He nodded. Leticia translated. "He says yes. The title is with the Registry of Deeds right now for annotation. Once the sale is finalized, it will transfer to the new corporation." I asked what that meant. She explained that in the Philippines, land transactions required annotation at the registry, a formal recording process that could take weeks or even months. "It's normal," she said. "The system here is slow, but everything is legal. I wanted to see the original title." Letitia said she'd bring a copy next time. I asked about permits for building. She said she'd handle that too once the corporation was set up. I asked about zoning restrictions. She assured me there were none that would affect my plans. Every question I had, she had an answer for. Smooth, confident. I told her I wanted to move forward. She smiled and said she'd start preparing the documents. A week later, I wired $72,000 into an escrow account set up by a lawyer Letitia recommended. His name was A.T. Villanueva. I met him once at his office in Batangas City. He was maybe 50, soft-spoken with glasses and a tired smile. He explained the process in legal language I barely followed. Articles of incorporation, memorandum of agreement, deed of absolute sale. He laid out documents in front of me, pointed to signature lines, told me this was standard procedure. I signed everything. I didn't read most of it. I should have. I know that now. But at the time I was too focused on the finish line. I wanted the land. I wanted the dream. A.T. Villanueva notarized the documents and told me the corporation would be registered within a month. I'd receive a certificate showing I owned 40% of a company that would hold the title to the land. Letitia would own 60%, but I'd control operations through a management agreement. It sounded fine. It sounded legal. I left his office feeling lighter than I had in years. I rented a guest house in town while Letitia handled the documentation. It was cheap, $15 a night, with a bed, a fan, and a shared bathroom down the hall. I didn't mind. I spent my days exploring the area, meeting other expats, eating at local restaurants. I felt free. I felt like I was part of something. Letitia texted me constantly with updates. Surveys being conducted, permits being filed, deed of sale being notarized. Everything was moving forward. I started making plans. I sketched designs for a cottage. I researched local contractors. I priced materials. 1 month passed. Then 6 weeks. I asked Letitia when I could see the original title. She said it was still at the registry, that the annotation process was taking longer than expected. It's the government, she said, laughing. Nothing moves fast here. I asked if I could go to the registry myself, just to verify. She seemed surprised. You can try, she said, but they probably won't give you information. It's all in Tagalog. They don't deal with foreigners much. I didn't push it. I should have, but I didn't. Then one afternoon, Letitia came to the guest house with a manila envelope. She was smiling. It's done, she said. Inside was a corporate certificate showing I owned 40% of a company called Reed Santos Agricultural Development Corp. The company's address was listed as Batangas City. The registered land was described by lot number and area. Congratulations, Letitia said. You're officially a landowner in the Philippines. I stared at the paper. It looked official, stamped, signed. I shook her hand and she laughed. Now the fun part begins, she said. Building your dream. I started hiring workers within a week. Letitia connected me with a contractor named Roel, a stocky man in his 40s, who spoke limited English but came highly recommended. He brought a crew of 6 laborers. We began clearing the land, cutting down overgrowth, leveling the area where I wanted to build the first cottage. I was on site every day, supervising, making sure the work was done right. It felt good to be useful again. To swing a hammer, to check measurements, to solve problems. I was spending money faster than I expected. Materials, labor, permits, equipment rental. Roel kept bringing me invoices and I kept paying. Letitia handled most of the cash transactions. She said it was easier that way, that contractors preferred cash, that receipts weren't always reliable in the provinces. I told myself it was fine. This was just how things worked here. But I started noticing small things. Workers who showed up late or not at all. Materials that didn't match the invoices. A truckload of cement that was supposed to be 10 bags but looked like 7. I asked Roel about it. He shrugged. Normal, sir. Philippines normal. I asked Letitia. She said the same thing. Everything is more expensive for foreigners. Everyone takes a little. It's just how it is here. I didn't like it, but I accepted it. I posted photos in an expat Facebook group. Guys congratulated me, said I was living the dream. A few warned me to be careful, to make sure all my paperwork was in order. One guy sent me a private message. Have you verified the title yourself? Don't trust anyone, not even family. I didn't respond. I told myself he was just paranoid, burned by his own bad experience. But his message stayed in my head. I was standing near the fence line one afternoon, checking the posts, when an old man approached me. He was maybe 65, barefoot, wearing a torn shirt and shorts. He spoke in broken English, pointing at the land. This land not for sale, he said. This land, municipal. Government land? I didn't understand. I asked him to repeat it. He pointed toward the ocean. Coastal, government, no cell. I felt something cold drop in my stomach. I asked him how he knew. He said he'd lived here his whole life, that this land had been disputed for years. I told him he must be confused, that this was private land titled legally owned. He shook his head. No, sir, no title. Government land. Then he walked away. I stood there staring at the half-built fence, trying to process what he'd just said. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe he was talking about a different parcel. Maybe he was just a confused old man. But I couldn't shake it. I called Letitia. She answered on the third ring. I told her what the man said. She laughed. Malcolm, that old man is confused. He probably thinks all coastal land is government land. But this property has a title. I showed you the papers. I said I wanted to see the original title again. She sighed. It's still at the registry. I told you the annotation takes time. I said I was going to the registry myself. There was a pause. You can try, she said, but they won't give you anything without the proper request forms. And it's all in Tagalog. I hung up and took a tricycle to the municipal office. The Registry of Deeds was a cramped government building with peeling paint and a line of people waiting outside. I waited for 2 hours. When I finally got to the counter, I asked about the title for my land. I gave them the lot number from my corporate papers. The clerk, a young woman with tired eyes, typed into an old computer. She frowned. No record, she said. I asked her to check again. She did. Same result. Maybe not encoded yet, she said. Come back in 1 month. I asked how long annotation usually takes. She shrugged. Depends. Maybe 2 months. Maybe 6. I felt my chest tighten. I asked if there was any way to verify the title existed at all. She looked annoyed. You need original title number. You have. I didn't. I only had the corporate papers. She told me to come back with more information. I left the building and sat outside on the curb, my hands shaking. I called Letitia again. This time she sounded irritated. Malcolm, I told you the system is slow. You're worrying over nothing. I said the clerk couldn't find any record of the title. Letitia said that was normal, that encoding takes time. I asked when I could see the original document. She said she'd check with her uncle. I hung up and stared at my phone. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed replaying every conversation, every document I'd signed, every red flag I'd ignored. I found the name of a private facilitator through another expat. Her name was Delia. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, no nonsense. I met her at a coffee shop in Batangas and explained my situation. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "You need a title verification. I charge $200. It takes 1 week." I paid her on the spot. A week later, she called me. Her voice was flat. "Mr. Reed, we need to meet." We met at the same coffee shop. She placed a folder on the table between us. "The land you purchased is classified as government property, specifically a coastal easement zone. It was never legally for sale." I felt the room tilt. I asked her to explain. She opened the folder and showed me maps, zoning documents, municipal records. The land I'd bought was within the salvage zone, a protected coastal area that couldn't be privately owned under Philippine law. "The title you were shown was either forged or belonged to a different lot," Delia said. "This scam is common. Fake titles, fake sellers, real lawyers who process the documents without verifying anything." I asked if the corporation was real. She nodded. "The corporation is real, but it doesn't own the land. It can't. The land was never for sale." I asked what I could do. She said I could file a criminal case for estafa fraud, but it would take years, and recovering the money was nearly impossible. "They've done this before," she said. "They know how to move money, how to hide assets. You'll spend more on lawyers than you'll ever get back." I sat there staring at the documents, feeling like someone had pulled the floor out from under me. I called Letitia. She didn't answer. I called again and again. Finally, she picked up. Her voice was cold. "What do you want, Malcolm?" I told her what Delia found. She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Your facilitator is lying. Expats always try to sabotage each other. They're jealous. I said I had the documents, the zoning maps, the municipal records. She said they were wrong. I asked to see her uncle. She said he was in the hospital. I asked which hospital. She hung up. I tried calling back. She didn't answer. I sent texts. No response. I went to her office. It was locked. A neighbor said Letitia hadn't been there in days. I stood outside that empty office, feeling something break inside me. I'd been played completely. I'd put over $100,000 into land I didn't own, through a corporation I didn't control, with a woman who was now a ghost. I went to the barangay captain's office to file a complaint. He listened politely and told me to go to the municipal office. At the municipal office, they sent me to the DNR. At the DNR, they told me to file with the ombudsman. At the ombudsman's office, they said I needed a lawyer. I went back to Attorney Villanueva, the lawyer who handled the sale. He didn't seem surprised to see me. I accused him of fraud, of processing fake documents. He leaned back in his chair and shrugged. I processed the documents you and Ms. Santos provided. I didn't verify the title. That's not my responsibility. I asked how he could notarize a sale without verifying the title existed. He said that wasn't required under his scope of work. I asked if he was in on it. He stood up. Mr. Reed, I suggest you leave my office. If you continue making accusations, I'll file a harassment complaint. I left. I hired a new lawyer, Atima de Castro, a woman from Manila who specialized in land fraud. She reviewed everything and confirmed what Delia had found. The land was government property. The sale was void. The corporation was real but owned nothing. I asked if I could sue. She said yes, but the process would take 5 to 10 years. Letitia would claim she acted in good faith, that she believed the title was legitimate. Attorney Villanueva would say the same. Recovering the money would be nearly impossible. They've likely moved it already, Attorney de Castro said. Overseas accounts, family members' cash. You'll spend $15,000 minimum on legal fees, with no guarantee of success. I asked if there was any other option. She said I could try mediation, maybe recover 10 or 20% if Letitia agreed. But that was unlikely. I'm sorry, Mr. Reed, she said. This happens more often than you think. I tracked Letitia down 2 weeks later. I found her at a small sari-sari store near the coast, talking with 2 men. When she saw me, she didn't look surprised. She walked over, casual, like we were old friends. The 2 men followed. They didn't say anything, just stood a few feet behind her, watching. I asked for my money back. She smiled. Malcolm, you made an investment. Investments have risks. You knew that. I said she sold me government land, that the title was fake. She shook her head. The title was real. You just didn't understand the terms. The corporation still exists. You still own your shares. I said shares in a company that owns nothing. She shrugged. That's not my fault. You signed the documents. You agreed to the structure. I told her I'd sue. She laughed. Go ahead. Foreign cases take years here. You'll spend everything you have left and still lose. One of the men stepped closer. I felt the threat. I realized then that she wasn't afraid of me, wasn't afraid of the law. She'd done this before. I was just another stupid foreigner with money and hope. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I went to my guest house and sat on the bed, staring at the corporate papers, the permits, the receipts. They felt like props now, like set pieces in a play I never understood I was in. 2 months later, I received a notice from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. The land I'd purchased was being officially reclaimed by the government for a coastal development project. Any structures I'd built were illegal and would be demolished within 30 days. If I didn't remove them myself, the government would clear them at my expense. I went to the DNR office, showed them my documents, explained I'd been scammed. The officer was sympathetic but firm. Sir, the land was never for sale. Any structures built there are illegal. We have to clear them. I asked if I'd be compensated. He said no. You don't have a legal claim. The land is government property. I watched them demolish the cottage I'd built. It took 2 days. Workers with sledgehammers and a small excavator. Locals gathered to watch. Some laughed. Others looked away. I stood there feeling like a fool on display. I took photos, thinking maybe I'd use them as evidence. But evidence of what? That I'd been naive? That I'd trusted someone I shouldn't have? The cottage came down in pieces. The fence was pulled out. Everything I'd built was reduced to a pile of rubble. The ocean glittered in the background, beautiful and indifferent. I wasn't compensated. I wasn't acknowledged. The government didn't recognize my claim because my claim was never legal. Rosa de Castro met me at a cafe in Manila a week later. She'd reviewed everything one last time. Her assessment was blunt. You have a civil case for Estafa against Leticia and a malpractice case against Ati or Villanueva, but your chances of winning are maybe 30%. Even if you win, collecting is almost impossible. Leticia has likely moved the money. Villanueva will claim he acted in good faith. She estimated legal fees at $15,000 minimum, with a case duration of 3 to 7 years. And even if you win a judgment, enforcing it is another battle, she said. I asked if there was any way to recover even part of the money. She said I could try mediation, offer to settle for 20%, but Leticia would have to agree. In my experience, Antonio de Castro said, people like her don't settle. They know foreigners can't afford to fight. I thanked her and paid her consultation fee. So I walked out into Manila traffic, surrounded by honking jeepneys and street vendors, feeling like a ghost. My savings were gone. My retirement fund was depleted. I couldn't afford to stay in the Philippines anymore. I couldn't afford to fight. I called my daughter in Melbourne. The conversation was short. She said she'd warned me not to go, that this was reckless. I asked if I could stay with her for a while, just until I figured things out. She said no. Dad, I have my own life. I can't take care of you. I called my son in Perth, same response. You made your choice, Dad. You have to deal with it. I tried my ex-wife. She didn't answer. I left a message. She never called back. I sold my laptop, my phone, my watch. I bought a one-way ticket back to Sydney. I had $400 left. I moved into a cheap boarding house in Manila while I waited for my flight. The place was full of expats. All of them had stories. Lost land, stolen money, fake girlfriends, bad business deals. We drank together in the common room, trading warnings no one would ever listen to. One guy said he'd lost $200,000 on a resort that never got built. Another guy said his Filipino wife cleaned out his bank account and disappeared. We all nodded, recognizing each other. We were cautionary tales now, walking warnings. But we knew no one would listen. We hadn't. I boarded the flight back to Sydney with nothing but a backpack. I sat by the window and watched Manila Bay disappear beneath the clouds. I thought about what I'd lost. Not just money, but purpose, dignity, hope. I replayed every decision, every red flag I'd ignored. The old farmer who warned me, the clerk who couldn't find the title, the expat who messaged me to verify everything. I'd dismissed them all. I'd wanted the dream too badly. I wondered if Leticia felt anything. Guilt, regret, probably not. I was just one of many. The flight was long. 14 hours. I didn't sleep. I scrolled through the photos on my old phone, the ones I hadn't deleted yet. The land at sunset, the half-built cottage, the ocean view. It all looked fake now, like a set piece, like something designed to sell hope to desperate men. I deleted them one by one. By the time we landed in Sydney, I felt hollowed out. I cleared customs, took a bus into the city. No one was waiting for me. I'd left as a man with a dream. I came back as a warning. I found a small rental flat in Western Sydney. 1 bedroom, $320 a week, most of my pension. I got a part-time job at a hardware store, the kind of job I thought I'd left behind forever. Stocking shelves, helping customers, wearing a name tag. I didn't talk about the Philippines. When people asked where I'd been, I said traveling. They didn't push. I joined an online expat forum, not to participate, but to read. I saw the same patterns repeating. New retirees asking about buying land. Guys posting photos of beautiful properties. Others warning them to be careful. I wanted to tell them the truth. I wanted to say, don't do it, don't trust anyone, don't believe the dream. But I didn't. They wouldn't listen. I didn't. I see posts from guys just like me, excited, hopeful, convinced they're different, that they'll do it right. I scroll past them. What's the point? They'll learn the same way I did. The hard way. The expensive way. The way that leaves you broken and invisible. I still think about Leticia sometimes. I wonder if she's selling the same land to someone else. Probably. I wonder if Achi Villanueva is still processing fake documents. Probably. I wonder if the government ever actually developed that coastal project, or if it was just an excuse to clear out the foreigners who'd been scammed. I'll never know. I work at the hardware store 5 days a week. I come home to an empty flat. I eat alone. I sleep alone. I don't date. I don't dream. I exist. That's the part that hurts most. I'm alive, but barely. I survived, but I didn't win. I think about what Achi de Castro said. This happens more often than you think. I believe her. I see it in the forums. I see it in the news. Foreign retirees losing everything. Some to romance scams, some to business scams, some like me to land scams wrapped in legal language and government stamps. We all thought we were smarter than that. We all thought we'd done our research. We all thought we'd be the exception. We weren't. I wasn't scammed by Letitia alone. I scammed myself with hope, with desperation, with the need to matter again, to build something, to escape the life I couldn't stand. The government didn't seize my land. They reclaimed what was never mine. Some dreams aren't stolen. They're just sold to you by people who know you'll buy them. I bought mine, and I paid for it with everything I had. Now I'm 62 years old, stocking shelves in a hardware store, living in a flat I can barely afford, invisible again. The only difference is this time I know I'll stay that way.